think I'm live. Okay, let me just pull this up on my computer and just make sure that everything is ready to go. I hope you guys can see me. Oh, I hope you guys can see me. Okay. I think that we are live. So this is a Faith Friday video. As you can see, I am in my workout clothes because I just got done working out and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna film and do an eating video and get this all taken care of in one fell swoop. So today for Faith Friday, I am talking about suffering and sacrifice, and as that relates to your spiritual journey, and also as it relates to health and fitness. Because as you guys know, I am a health and fitness coach, and I help women and men release their emotional attachment to food and live a healthy, fit, and flourishing life without suffering necessarily. There will be sacrifice, but without suffering. So that's what I want to talk about today. But first, let me tell you guys what I'm eating. I am having eggs. I put some sriracha on there, and then I just have some gluten-free waffles. And I am drinking my greens right now. The greens that I use are linked in my description box. These greens, I take them every single day without fail. The reason why I like them so much is because they help me to digest my food appropriately, which means that I have more energy throughout the day. So before, when I wasn't taking them, I was eating all this healthy food, but I was still feeling a little bit lethargic. And one of the reasons is because my body wasn't digesting the food and it wasn't distributing it through my bloodstream properly. So taking these greens helps to do that. It keeps me regular, and it also, as someone who lives a stressful life for the time being, your pH is damaged when you're stressed. And so the greens actually help bring your body back to a normal pH level that is healthy. So I just feel a lot better and more energized when I take my greens. I don't know, sometimes it's really hard to describe it, but these are linked below. So I'm drinking my greens and I'm gonna be eating my eggs and waffles. And we're gonna talk about seasons of sacrifice, suffering and sacrifice. So let me go ahead and pull up my notes I have here. Well, speaking of sacrifice, people are always like, do your greens taste good? I'm like, it's literally ground up salad. Like, do you really think it's going to be like delicious? Like, sometimes we just sacrifice, something that tastes super amazing for our health. So it's definitely not nasty. Like, I'm not going to drink something that's nasty, but it's not like some delicious drink, like this expectation it's going to be delicious. It's greens. There's not a lot of sugar in it. And so it's not going to be super sweet. But speaking of sacrifice, like for my health, I'm willing to make the small sacrifice of, 2 scoops of greens a day to be energized and feel better. All right. So, oops. Let me grab a napkin, you guys, really quickly before I get started. So I want to talk about sacrifice and suffering. And again, I feel like all of my Faith Fridays feel a little controversial. I don't know why. But today I want to talk about sacrifice and suffering as it relates to health and fitness. And so my personal belief, and this is based on the fact that I'm a Christian, is that if you're a believer, you understand that there is going to be suffering in life, and you understand there's going to be sacrifice. But those two things do not have to happen concurrently, And just because you're sacrificing doesn't mean you have to suffer. So sacrifice to me is just giving something up for another thing, giving something up for the greater good. And suffering is undergoing like a steady, sustaining distress or hardship for a long period of time. And I do believe, as a mindset coach, that there are some sacrifices that do not require suffering, because suffering happens when you want to change something. So, for example, let's talk about it as it relates to like working out. Okay, so I'm gonna eat some food first. So there's this idea in health and fitness that if you want to lose weight, you have to be suffering, meaning you have to be hating every minute of dieting. You have to hate every minute of exercise. You have to be in pain. You have to be longing for it to end. And that's how you get results. And actually, that suffering piece is the piece that causes people to not start. And that suffering piece is actually the piece that gets people concerned when they're working with me and they're like, wait a minute, why am I not like yearning for food? And why am I not just hating my exercise regimen? Well, because the lie that you have to suffer, that you have to hate it in order for it to work is what the industry has taught. So one thing that I work with my clients through is like, if you have a goal, and you are trying to complete your goal, you just do it. Suffering comes when we don't want to do something and we're like, oh, I hate it so much. But if you decide that, okay, I understand intuitively that if I exercise and eat well, I'm going to lose weight, my blood, my markers are going to be better, I'm going to have a better body fat percentage. There's no suffering in that because I've already decided that that's what I'm going to do. I'm not trying to change it. I'm not going, oh, I wish I didn't have to take care of my body. I wish I didn't have to eat well. Because with my clients, I'm like, oh, if you like, meatballs, then you can have meatballs. Just don't have 40 meatballs, right? So the suffering comes in when we are trying to change something and trying to change something that we can't really change. We all know that if you eat well and exercise, and you do that for a sustained period of time, you're going to see changes. So yes, that is a sacrifice. The act in it of itself of changing your lifestyle is a sacrifice. But do you have to suffer? I don't think so. I don't think you have to suffer. To me, the suffering comes in when I'm yearning to go back to my old habits, and I'm yearning to go back to being acting in a way that is detrimental to my health. So then the question becomes, why do you want to be detrimental to your health? Why do you want to go back on your habits? That's where the suffering comes in. So we eliminate the suffering when we just accept that this is the way that it needs to be. Now, there are obviously, I have to be nuanced, right? There are obviously some things where you're going to suffer. I just don't believe that health and fitness has to be one of them. So there's going to be times in your life where you're going to suffer because you're going to go through sustained, really, really challenging things, and you're going to suffer. You're going to be in pain. You're going to be wishing that things were different. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with suffering. I think there's something wrong when you change, when you make every sacrifice something to suffer. I think about, the Israelites. I think about the Israelites when they were in the wilderness, and the Lord's like, I gave you some, here's some manna, right? Here's this and here's that. And they kept asking for more and more and more. and they were never ever satisfied, and everything was suffering for them. It was like, we don't have this, we don't have that, we don't have this, we don't have that. And it's like, yes, they actually made a great sacrifice by leaving Egypt, staying in the wilderness so they could get to the promised land. They did that. That was a huge sacrifice. And there was some inherent suffering in that, right? People were dying, people were getting ill, but it all wasn't suffering. All of it wasn't suffering. They had everything that they needed, but they kept wanting things to be, they wanted more and more and more. And that contributed to their suffering. And so I bring up that example because I think for me in my faith walk, it's like, what is actual suffering and what is just a sacrifice? And that's a question that I have to ask myself a lot. What is, am I really suffering, or do I have to suffer through this? Or is this just a sacrifice and I just need to accept it? And I'm not going to pretend like I have all the answers to that, because I don't. I don't have the answer to that question. But what I do know is that everything is not a suffering situation. Everything is not something for me to suffer. Some things are just a sacrifice, and I just need to accept that they're a sacrifice, and some things are suffering. And so I can't get out of it, right? The Bible says you are going to suffer for Christ's sake. So I know that that's coming. I know that that's part of the walk as a Christian, but everything is not suffering. We have to be careful not to idolize suffering. Out of wanting to appear more righteous and holy than other people, right? We have to just, some things are not that. So for me, what has been helpful is deciding, okay, I understand that some things I'm going to have to give up for again, we'll go back to health and fitness because this is a health and fitness channel. When I made the decision that I was going to drink my greens every day that are not delicious, there's no suffering in that for me, because it's just like, that's just what you do. I don't go, oh, these are so nasty, why do I have to take them? I'm just like, drink the greens and move on. Same thing for exercise. I get on on my treadmill, or I go out and I find a way to make it enjoyable. So I listen to a podcast, I listen to my favorite music. Sometimes I'll go walk and I'll talk with a friend. So instead of the whole time grumbling and complaining, because God forbid you take care of your own body, I'm just like, this is a sacrifice, but I don't have to suffer through this. Right? Food. Let's talk about food. I love ice cream as much as the next person. I love donuts as much as the next person. There's a place around the corner, you guys, that has the best buttermilk bars I have ever tasted in my life. I kid you not. They're so thick and creamy. And you know how when donuts have like that weird, like oily taste? There's none of that. Even when they're old, even when the donuts are old, they're still good. Because when donuts get old, they get that oily taste or whatever. That soybean oil, canola oil, whatever. They don't have that. But as it relates to food, would I prefer to be having a plate of pancakes right now and French toast and country potatoes and sausage? Yes. So I can sit here and go, this tastes like cardboard. I hate this so much. Why do I do? Or I can say, I'm so thankful that I get the opportunity and that I can afford gluten-free waffles and egg whites from Costco. And this may not always be the best thing, best tasting thing, but it's good for my body. And by the way, you guys, I don't eat nasty food. Let's go back to it. When we think of fitness, we think of crusty, dry chicken breasts, bland vegetables, and maybe a quarter cup of rice, right? You've been taught that you have to suffer. Now, the sacrifice portion of that is, yes, you're going to eat chicken breast probably sometimes. Yes, you're going to not be able to pour a pound of butter on your vegetables. You can still have some butter on your vegetables. No, you're not going to be able to have 4 cups of rice, but you can have some cups of rice. So elevating the suffering piece to a sacrificing piece and being like, this is manageable. And that is part of what I do in my coaching is like, yes, you're going to sacrifice. I will not lie to you, but you do not have to suffer all the time. This whole journey does not have to be a suffering journey. And some of that is a choice. Okay? Now, another sacrifice, and then I'm going to get off of here as it relates to my spiritual journey, is, sacrificing time in the morning or on Sundays to go to church, right? I mean, I could be, it's funny because I get a lot of requests for training on Sundays with my athletes. And there was a time in my life where I wasn't willing to make that sacrifice. So I wasn't willing to sacrifice money, or I was willing to go to train people instead of go to church and on Sundays. And it's not the going to church piece that is actually because that's a very legalistic way to think about it, right? It's not the going to church piece. It's, am I unable to sacrifice 2 hours of my day for God? And that's a whole word. I'm just going to leave it at that. Am I unable to sacrifice 2 hours of my day for the Lord? Same thing goes with my Bible reading. And I audio Bible. Like I listen to my Bible as I wake up. I drink my tea or my lemon water. And as I'm doing something around the house, I listen to my audio Bible. Now, I could spend that time listening to something else. But am I not willing to give him 20 minutes in the morning? Sacrifice my own personal satisfaction for 20 minutes. So my question for you is, what is sacrifice and what is suffering? And make sure you ask yourself, do I have to suffer through this? And sometimes the answer is yes. And sometimes it's no. Sometimes it's just a sacrifice and there's no suffering involved. All right, you guys, we are done with this video. If you are struggling with your food mindset, if you are struggling with how to get healthy without suffering, but with sacrifice, you can visit the link in the description box, has my food mindset course. You can also send me an email at coaching@fittheletterinflourishing.com. You can find me on Instagram at _coach.joe. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, you guys, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I'm going to finish eating my breakfast, and get started with my day. All right, you guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.